I'm Alasdair. I went out into business by myself in 2020 as the world went into lockdown. I qualified in Australia in 1992, so I've been doing accounting and commercial, both in commercial firms and in practice for around about 30 years. So qualified in Australia, also in FCA, and for the last 20 years, I've been in Guernsey and in trust and estate, trust and fiduciary type, so the private client world. First time I've done it myself. So I live in a small island off or between the UK and France called Guernsey, and because it's quite small, it's 5 miles by 9. It's got 65,000 people on it. Resources at a premium, and it's also quite a high cost jurisdiction to operate in. Right. So there's a lot of international firms who operate in multi jurisdictions, and more we're seeing offshoring or outsourcing to India, Mauritius, and other places. Your accounting work and bookkeeping. For my business, it was something I looked at fairly early on and saw it as a very I wanted to be a cloud-based firm, so I wanted to be very technologically based in the cloud, allowing me to be quite mobile, but also allowing me to potentially outsource or offshore. Right. And I think probably about 18 months ago, I had a call with someone I'd met on LinkedIn who was an accountant in the UK, who put me in contact with Integrity and Chris, etc., Riviera. And so we've kept in contact for a long time before getting to a stage where I felt I needed to bring in some support in the business. Yeah, sure. So I was finding it more increasingly harder to keep across my own administration and sort of grow the business. I've got a few new services which are sort of probably outside of the realm of normal accounting, but needed a lot of work. So bringing someone in who could take care of the bookkeeping, the client account, the statutory accounts, and that sort of compliance work was really key. I was finding that I was, if I was in the middle of something and I had to pick up a call or a thing, then getting back to bookkeeping, it wasn't an efficient way of doing it. So having someone dedicated who can do that work and is focused on that has made a big difference in terms of speeding up and I think improving the service that I can provide to clients, improving the information that I'm delivering. Yeah, so I think that's a good point. Like any staff member, whether they're physically in the same office or whether they're remote and in an offshore situation, I think it's really key to have day-to-day contact. So I'd say on most days, and it's normally my fault if we miss it, but we try to have a morning meeting to get into the rhythm of what's going on, to catch up if there's any questions. So there's a lot of touch in that. And then I've also used Loom a lot, which I think the team members found very useful in terms of they can, I can record something, they can watch it over again, they can slow it down, replay it. So that's been a really good tool in terms of training and creating that communication loop between us. In terms of day-to-day, it's been, I was probably I was reticent at the start, maybe to give too much too soon. And in hindsight, I think I maybe held back too much. And then I was finding I was bottlenecking because I wasn't getting through stuff quick enough. So I've pushed more down and sort of had a talk to my client manager as well as a staff member, and he was keen to keep the work moving. So I've probably got a bit more confident around that. And that's key, is having confidence in your staff, sort of seeing how far they can go, and then also giving that coaching around communication needs to be better with clients, or things that I want checked. We've got all the invoices in, and that standard is set. I think firms probably vary on that, so it's just setting those expectations. Yeah, it's been good. I think it's important to recognise where there's language differences, and just to make sure things get through. We have a video call every day. As I said, so I'm a Google Workspace business, so we tend to use Google Meet. We just have a regular time in the morning. If I've got meetings or if I'm traveling, we'll shift that around, but try to keep it fairly regularly to a morning call. And then we have chat. So I have a Google chat, which we leave open, and there's pretty much constant dialogue during the day on that as well. So the communication's very open. Using a sort of platform like Google, it's fairly easy to collaborate within documents. Another tool in that, to be able to, I can sit down in the evening and go through a whole lot of processes and go, right, this is how I do a payroll, or this is how I do setting up a seafarer for yacht employment, and I can record that and use it for my current team, but also if we have new joiners in the future, they'll be able to watch those as well. So it's building up a library. Support from the client manager, your client relationship. We're probably quite early stages, but things like your SOPs that your statements of procedures, which I can take on board and look at fitting in, and you're learning from the fact that you're working with a lot of practices. So there's probably some best practices I can pick up at Integrity. It was almost seamless. I was really surprised at how, I expected there to be a sort of handover point where into the UK business hours. So we start and finish pretty much at the same time, which I appreciate. It's a lot later for the team in India. But the support's been brilliant on that front. Likewise, there's some flexibility for time off if they want to travel on the weekend and that sort of thing. And but I think that's all workable. I think, like any team, if you've got people and you're in the same office, you've got to manage those. And I think the key for remote working or resource working is you've got to look at your processes and make sure they work. Because if they're not working and they're not understandable to someone who's sitting across the desk from you, then that is going to be what's the right word? It's going to be exacerbated in a situation where you're apart. So I'm still working through a lot of processes, so I can almost document them as we go through into our practice management system, and then the team in India can pick those up. But yeah, the time difference hasn't been an issue. It's been I thought there'd be a time where I'd be finishing or they'd be finishing and I wouldn't be here, and it hasn't. It's pretty much we're working on the same time zone. Yeah, look, I'm really keen to grow, and it's been a really having someone in to be able to. I think one of this year has been a real focus for me on what is the high value task that I really need to focus on to grow the business, and what are the things that I need to let go of and delegate to that allow those those clients to be serviced, but also allow me to grow the revenue in the business and really focus on that high end. So we're looking at what I want to be is a strong advisory firm. We have a niche in the super yacht space, and maritime space. So I've done a lot of work over the last 10 years with family officers and yacht owners who own sort of yachts from 25 meters generally up to 100 meters. Complexity of the yachts moving around, they tend to have very high transaction flows in terms of number of payment transactions and expense transactions that go through. There's budgeting. There's often the ultimate owner and the person who enjoys the yacht, and then there's a family office or potentially other professionals involved in those structures. So having a cloud-based solution is really important. There's also crew aboard who need to be paid and employed. So that's one area, is that that super yacht space is something I've been involved in since 2014. And then I also want to be very much a business advisory to virtual CFO, virtual finance department, and looking at how we can help business owners really extract the most value out of their business. And there's a coaching element to that as well. Could often with a business in, I'd say, turnover from 500,000 up to 5 to 10 million. There's often the business's growth is at some point going to be limited by some of the personalities of the senior management team and the owners, and working through some of that is key. Putting in those systems for them so they have really robust financial data. And I see, working with having an offshore team is really integral to be able to provide that, because whatever you want to do reporting wise and things, actually the starting base is having that foundation of very good bookkeeping. At a high level, that's what I'm looking at is probably a higher value service. I'm not trying to build a team which is low margin tax returns for sole traders and individuals. It's very much, my background's been more on the corporate side, so that's where I think I can add the most value. But I'd like to grow, from where we are now to 500,000 plus in turnover in the next couple of years. Firstly, treat them like any other member of your team. Treat your team members. They might not be in the same office, but they are part of your team, and you need to include them in your meetings and communications, like that. Look at their growth as well. Put some trust. Put a lot of trust them and push that. They've got the infrastructure around them, and I think key is for it to work, you need to really look at your processes and have strong processes, and that makes it. But I think if you invest in your people, whether they're here or remotely, and you look at your processes and make sure they're fit for purpose, and that's an ongoing thing, I think, for any business as you grow. That would be my main advice.